Welcome to the Ignorance is Strength podcast. I'm your host, Fabian motherfucking Ojeda, and I don't know shit, but that's okay. All right, let's get this shit started. Thank you everybody for listening to the Ignorance is Strength podcast. Hope you all enjoyed the previous episode number 150, shit show number 15. Welcoming back all the guys, and they'll be back again in the next 10 episodes for number 16 if we make it that far. But I'm back today with two brand new guests. Very excited to talk to Nick Bryan and Scott Maffei. And so you two are fellow podcasters as well. You seem to have all your equipment and everything. I mean, I got a little backdrop, but I just got out of work, so I'm like, let's just do the headphones.
Mine's my office that has converted into a podcast space. I still need some doors, but other than that, it's comfortable.
Every once in a while, a dog or a child walks into Nick's screen. Yeah. It's fine. There's no control he's got over there.
Well, I'm glad we have video. We can see what's going on, right? So I don't like random ass screams or squeals. I wouldn't know what to think. But I wanted to see, you're both podcasters. You're on a podcast together. What's the name of the podcast you all do together?
So we are on the No New Friends podcast, the podcast for adults who love to laugh at adulting. So what we found when we first started our podcast journey, and when we first started, it was just myself and my co-host, Mary. We were best friends, and we were just trying to test Zoom. That was the intent, was just to test Zoom, and it was comedy gold, or at least I think it was comedy gold. And we're like, okay, let's make this into a podcast. And as you know, podcasts have to be somewhat specific. You have to kind of have a general direction, and we had none. We were like the Seinfeld of podcasts, the podcast for nothing and everything all at the same time. Mm-hmm. And as we kept going, I noticed a common theme. I was like, we talk about our lives a lot: parenting, relationships, work, friendships, and just adulting. And I said, you know what? Why don't we make this podcast about adulting? There's not many out there like that. And that's really what we do. We do 2 episodes a week. Our Sunday episode is very, very comedy based, where it's us making fun of each other for the stupid shit that we do in our everyday life. Mm-hmm. We've got a couple built-in bits: New Jersey man versus Florida man, where we hear 2 news stories and we have to guess which one's which. One of our,
and it's always a shit show because you never know.
You never know. Yeah. You never know. A lot of stabbings in New York and a lot of meth here in Florida. So I'm from Florida. 3 of us are from Florida. 1 of us is from Ohio. 1 of us is from New Jersey. So that's kind of where that came from. And then we just recently, now it's 25 weeks, Nick. We've done 25 weeks of After Dark. Yeah. We started our Wednesday episode, No New Friends After Dark, where it's a little bit, because we don't curse on the Sunday show. And I know that seems silly, but I always found it important for us. I didn't want to curse. The Wednesday show is wide open for anything. Anything goes. And we started stumbling on some serious topics. It's adulting, but it's peeling back the layers of adulting. Sometimes the episodes are extremely funny, but sometimes they're extremely serious. We've dealt with mental health. We've dealt with, the Pulse shooting. I'm here in Orlando. So, and Nick being a member of the LGBTQ community, it's been very important for us to educate ourselves, but educate our audience on Nick's everyday life and everyday struggles. So that's kind of the basis of our second episode per week is there's a lot of super gay stuff, as we like to say. And we have a lot of fun with it too. It's not all serious, but we have a lot of fun with it. But we also want to recognize the realities and peeling back those layers of the onion of adulting.
Very cool. How do you like being introduced as the super gay one, Nick?
I'm proud of it, I guess, now. And it's funny because it started out just kind of one episode. We were making up a fun bit called Q and Gay, and it was 2 straight guys asking a gay guy questions. And it was fun and silly, and so backstory, I actually started sponsoring the No New Friends podcast originally. So I own a travel agency that focuses on Disney and cruises and all that. And so I started sponsoring them because I had met them through another podcast as well too. And so they've had me on as kind of a guest occasionally, just kind of talking travel type stuff. So they wanted me on to kind of learn my backstory and learn who Nick is from Sandpiper Vacations. And from that, like we said, we started with that Q&A question and error, and then it turned into, I did not know these things about the gay community. So each episode I've given them a lot of lessons on the gay community.
we sometimes we skip from gay 101 to gay 105, which sometimes we may not be ready for yet. We've gotten into some intimate details. We now know that the gays have gills and can do a lot of things in hot tubs. Just an FYI.
So I want to listen to that episode.
That is an interesting note to put out there. I'll go ahead and check that one out. I was going to say, I told you before we even started, I'm like, you even got the super gay microphone going on.
Yeah, I've colored up my life anymore. There's rainbows, Mickey and Minnie stuffed animals behind me and everything. So I've had a huge passion in kind of just promoting the gay community and getting those questions out there and talking about it openly with people over the past probably 12 years now, because I used to work for an LGBT marketing agency. So my job was strictly working with clients like Miller Lite and Coors Light, huge name brands, to focus on the gay marketing for the
not Bud Light though.
Not Bud Light.
Oh damn!
But I did work for Bud Light actually before that too. So I've worked all over the alcohol industry and.
Fabian, what's super interesting about what Nick specializes in, Disney Cruises all inclusive, but and this is something that I didn't even know existed, but he specializes in LGBTQ plus friendly vacation spots. Wow, because I didn't know that like Jamaica is not LGBTQ plus friendly. So, a lot of his clients, are members of the community, and we'll reach out to him. Hey, I've got a family, I've got, same-sex marriage. We've got a child. Where can we go on vacation that's safe for us? Which as a straight white male, that's not something I think of, I go to vacation where, probably in the United States, because a lot of people overseas don't really like us, but it's not something that I have to think about when planning a vacation.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. You think like Jamaica, anything goes, right? But that's not.
Yeah, exactly. You think Jamaica, you just picture weed and
people laid back, right?
Yeah, man. But I mean, a lot of the Caribbean's not gay friendly, and like Scott said, so I've been married to my husband for almost 10 years now. We have a 5-year-old daughter that we've adopted. She's a Black child as well too, so we factor that in. So my passion with my agency and now moving forward with just life in general is just making it's normal, I guess, normalizing
for sure.
The gay community more. And
yeah, very cool. Yeah, so I mean, I learned a little bit now already, right? So
right, we learn so much from Nick every single episode. It's unreal.
Oh, and it's like Scott and I were talking before the episode, and I'm like, before we even came on here, I'm like, what show are we going on? This and that, and it's like, we talk about it all the time in the episode, and a lot of people don't realize that as a gay man, I essentially have to come out every single day. So before coming on the episode, I was like, how gay can I be on here, Scott? And he's like, well, I guess we'll find out. So it's just, it's one of those things that like, my mind, everywhere I go, I have to think about it when I mention my husband or mention my daughter and they see her, my daughter. That
I'm going to relate that to something you might not even think of, right? Because, especially after, pandemic and everything, I got real sick. I got COVID twice. I had a lot of health problems after that. I gained a lot of weight, I gained a lot of weight. And the way you're mentioning things, it's like the way I have to look at going out in public, right? I'm like, oh, their bathroom's going to be big enough. Like, what kind of booths or chairs do they have? It's a little bit like daunting, right? Because you're like, people they don't prepare for you. They don't plan for you. And you can't expect them to, right? But it's like, I get what you're saying in a way, obviously it's not the same. I'm not going to say that it's super parallel, but that's interesting the way you bring that up, because I can relate to that. It's like, wow, it's like, you really have to think of like every little detail before you get out there sometimes. So
maybe, and we have a Pride merch line, and one of ours, here in Florida, there's the whole "Don't Say Gay" bill. So I have a pink "We Say Gay, No New Friends" shirt, and I wear it. I wear it very proud. But when I'm walking around, I'm like, am I going to get beat up for the shirt that I'm wearing right now because I'm an ally, because I support that community? And that's the closest that I will ever feel to what Nick has to go through every single day. And I'll wear that shirt one day a week. So that's one day a week that I have to feel that.
It's crazy that it's still like that, though, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Especially here in Florida. Yeah. Other parts of the country are a lot more accepting, and it's not like that. You know, Nick is in Columbus, Ohio. He lives at 1425 Sycamore Lane. You know, which is Nick, correct me if I'm wrong, but very LGBTQ plus friendly.
Yeah, we were one of the top 3 gay cities in the United States.
In Ohio.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. That's what I said.
I get that response all the time because with my old job being in LGBT marketing, my role was there's only 5 people in my position across the entire country. So there was a person in New York City, a person in Dallas, Texas, someone in LA, San Francisco, and then there's me in Columbus, Ohio. And I thought that all the time too. I even said that. I'm like, why Ohio? Why Ohio? But we're a huge gay market. We're a very young, fresh city here too. If you're not familiar with Columbus, we're not a tourist city, but we are a top 15 city in the United States. So a lot of people don't know that. Yeah, I'm
gonna add that to the things I learned in my notes too.
And a lot of people don't even know where Ohio is on a map. So
right. Now I want to give you a little bit about how I started my podcast, and I want to see how you started yours. Right. So, I was very bored during this whole lockdown. Right. And it was like, I'm like, what do I do? I started playing music again, right? Started picking up a lot of cooking and things like that. But I'm like, I'm still not interacting with people. I'm not going to work in person and things like that. And I'm like, okay, cool. I'll start a podcast. I've always kind of thought, hey, I could do that, right? Mm-hmm. And I started it. I started small. I did what I called like, almost like throwing out the first pancake type of episodes, right? Where you don't know what it's going to turn out like. Could be kind of shitty, right? Could be kind of good, but let's see. Let's throw it out there and see what works. So I did, my cousin was my first interview, and I interviewed him about steroids, and we talked about doing steroids. I don't know anything about that. So that's cool. That ties in with the name of the podcast.
It's all about learning. It's all about learning about different people and different struggles or different cultures, all that stuff. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then I just interviewed more local people, some of my best friends, that I knew in high school. And one of the concepts that I think is kind of similar to yours, every 10 episodes, I have what I call the shit show, which is the episode that's going to be right before yours. So that's interesting that we're doing this one. And it's kind of the same thing, right? We're having fun talking about stupid stuff and, what's topical, what's in the news, what's controversial right now, throwing out some high school memories or, our early 20s, stupid shit, and everybody likes being a fly on the wall listening to that because it's that camaraderie, right? You can hear the fun that we're having, and people really, really, really dig that when they listen to it because it's like, man, you guys are hilarious. Like you should have been recording this all your life, kind of thing, right? And so I'm really wondering, because y'all are in different states and everything, right? How did you all come together and start doing this? What's a little bit of your background and history?
I love this. I love this question because it's one of my favorite questions to answer. So I've always had a passion for radio, for talk radio. I was a big Howard Stern fan in the 90s. And I always wanted to get into radio. I did some internet radio station before podcasting was like a real thing, back in like the early 2000s. It broadcast on the internet and then live in Los Angeles, 5:50 a.m. You could only hear it between two hills. That was it. And I always loved this. So before the pandemic, there's a huge local radio station here in Orlando, Real Radio 104.1. That's their FM. That's Orlando's FM talk station. It's the number one station. And there's an evening show. It's called Real Laugh. Mm-hmm. With those guys, they're nationally touring stand-up comedians, and they called me one week and they're like, hey, we're short hosts, can you guest host for us? And I got to do a 6-week stint on that show. Didn't get paid, but I got the itch. Then the pandemic, and when they started recording again, they started using StreamYard, and they're recording over the internet. I'm like, wow, you can do that. And I was like, well, if they can do that, these guys are comedians. They're not smart with the technology. I'm like, I can do that, right? And I had a different podcast in mind called Working Dad Jokes. That was kind of the running joke, the running idea. It was going to be 4 dads. And it took me 2 years to really do anything with that because I was like, I don't know what microphones to get. I don't know what equipment to get. So overwhelmed with how to get this started. And so I delayed on it because I'm a lazy motherfucker. And, I don't want to do research. Those are that's the panhandle of Florida. They do their own research. So that's a political joke. So anyway, when I saw them doing this, I'm like, wait a second, I wonder if you can record. And I played around and I was trying to get my dad to do a test recording with me. He wasn't available. And so I got Mary, she was my first co-host, and we recorded it. It came out great. Now it's always been my goal to have this 4 to 5 person cast. And I've been very, very strategic about who I add. So 22 episodes in, we meet Chris. Chris was on another podcast. Chris is our comedic genius. He does this bit at the end of the show. It's called Chris's Cliff Notes, where pretty much he writes a stand-up monologue based on everything we said in the episode. So he's contributing to the episode, but he's also writing a stand-up bit throughout that episode. It's
hilarious.
It's so funny. I don't know how he does it because I try to duplicate it in the Wednesday episode, and I have a writer that writes for me.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah. So then Mary unfortunately started having some health problems. So I needed to add another female. So then we added Sarah, who was a friend who is the wife of a friend of mine who I heard on his podcast one time. And I said, I have to have her because she has the voice. She has these one-liners, and that's her gold. That's her money, is just these funny one-liners. She doesn't talk a whole lot during the episode, but she contributes with these one-liners. Nice. And we've developed characters around the 4 of us. So then when we started After Dark, now After Dark was originally designed to house these interviews. Some of these interviews that we get are bigger names, and we put them on the Sunday episode. Some of them are not as big, and I didn't want to put them in the Sunday episode. So we're like, okay, let's start the second episode of the week. And then that evolved because that, like I've described earlier, we found more that we could do with it. And I'm really proud of what it's evolved to. And Nick was originally just supposed to be a reoccurring guest. I think he came on episode 3, and you haven't left.
I'm stuck.
Yeah, Nick and Nick was sponsoring us, sandpipervacations.com. Tell them that the No New Friends podcast sent you. And he was so popular with our listeners. They wanted more of Nick. They love Nick. And Nick had been on the main episode, we call it. And I didn't feel it was the right time to add him to that. And then we hit gold with Nick because we found this segment that we weren't touching yet, and he's comedy gold. Everybody loves him. And so I said, Nick, I've got to have you on both episodes per week, so make the arrangements and make it happen. And here we are. That's our cast. Now we've got some other supporting characters here and there. A lot of our Patreon members, our Clubhouse members, they are so passionate about our show. One of them writes our Jersey Man, Florida Man, and he does the recording, and he takes an opportunity to make fun of us. And Ryan is a brilliant writer, writes all my jokes for,
and we stream ours live as well too. So we have kind of an audience essentially, and they're interacting and writing comments, and occasionally we'll throw in some of their jokes that they throw out there, or if we'll use them as our own though. Yeah. we don't give them any credit. Or if they're really engaged in a topic, we just kind of continue that conversation because we kind of start each episode with an idea of what we want to talk about. Sometimes those kind of go away very quickly when something all of a sudden somebody says a word. I'm like, oh my gosh. Well, what are we talking about?
Fabian, we were supposed to talk about travel and then Chris's Achilles surgery or whatever. And when, because Chris hosts the Wednesday episode, when he asked me, or when he introduced me, I said, if I had a genie lamp, the one wish that I would wish for is for one day women to have a penis so that they can understand what a blowjob feels like so that we can get them more. Then the whole episode revolved around blowjobs, gay sex, you name it. Nick educated us, but it was a really funny episode with something that we hadn't even planned.
Well, the fucking blowjobs in there, that sold me right there. Everybody's going to be listening now, right?
Right. Exactly.
Nobody doesn't like them. Come on now.
One of our classic episodes, it started with a bit with me talking about grocery shopping, because I don't do the grocery shopping in my house, and I was out of sugar for my coffee. And so I'm looking for sugar, and I'm thinking it's in the coffee section. It's not. It's in the baked goods section.
Right. Yeah.
So that was supposed to be what the conversation was supposed to be about. Well, then Chris comes out very innocently and says, I don't go to the grocery store. I've really been into BJ's lately. To which my response was, well, most guys are. And now it's this whole reoccurring joke where BJ's are oral sex and Costco is sex. We don't say sex on our show. We don't say making love, having sex, fucking, whatever. It's we're going to Costco. That is our innuendo. And it came from a topic that we didn't even discuss.
Yeah. Well, I want to see what those samples are like, right?
Yeah.
But it sounds like, no new friends. So you got some new friends in there, right? Would that be correct?
Very correct. It's one of the most common questions that we get asked. Originally, the original name was Mary's very possessive of our friendship. And she's like, no new friends. But then as it evolved, we realized that we're just awkward human beings that do really dumb shit. Nobody really wants to be our friends. So we can't make new friends, Wow. So, no new friends.
Right. And it's helped me a lot too, because I'm like, I never really had many straight guy friends, and we just started chatting, and all of a sudden we became best friends out of it. And so I'm learning from them as well too, and it's been really amazing to have these conversations and joke about it too. Now we have inside jokes, and we laugh about me getting it up the ass or something like that.
Right. Nick sends us a lot of dick pics though, and I wish he would stop, because he's just trying to convert us.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, right? When people start podcasts and whatnot, some of them have some pretty lofty goals, right? Others, like me, I just do this for fun, right? I'm not looking to make a career out of this. I'm not looking to monetize. I just have fun doing this. But I know some people that have a podcast, and whether their audience is broad or not, they are convinced, like, hey, no, this is going to be my living. This is going to be the way I make money. I'm going to make it, right, in such a saturated market. What's your motivation? Why do this podcast? There's so many podcasts right out there.
First, Scott's wife makes all the money.
4.2 million. Yeah.
Scott's wife makes all the money, so he's just here for the fun.
Yeah, there's 4.2 million podcasts out there, but as every podcaster will probably tell you, I know that we have a good product. I know that we make good content. It has always been my goal to do this full time. I want to make a living broadcasting. It's not necessarily for the fame. I don't want to be famous. Now, I know that with a certain level of success that comes with it, but I want to entertain people. And I want to entertain the masses, because I know we have a product that would entertain the masses. My goal is to do a live recording at Hard Rock Live here at City Walk at Universal Studios. Cool. That is my ultimate end goal, which isn't even that doesn't even put us in the top 5% of podcasts. Okay, people say I joke, but I'm serious. I want to be the number 2 podcast in the world. Of course, next to Joe Rogan, because nobody's beating him. But I want to be the number 2 podcast. That's my goal. That's my end goal. And I will do whatever it takes to get there. Even if I have to suck a couple dicks, I will get to number 2.
Well, you get all your tips on your podcast already, right?
Exactly. Nick's going to have to give me a lesson, grasp.
I was going to say, Scott, you're already kind of halfway there with that Bud Light you're sipping on, according to some of your Florida people, right?
It's my gay water. Yes. Yeah.
And we even had an episode about talking about the Bud Light and the whole anti-gay crap with that. And it's so, like we've said before, we've had some deep conversations and talked into those serious topics. put some fun twist on it because I'm gay, and just throwing those in there as well too with our fans, and they really enjoy it.
You know what? While I have the opportunity, I do want to ask a question here because, you know, I know I joke about the Bud Light stuff and all that, right? And I always wonder why, you know, people are so up in arms about it. You know, it's like, it's just a fucking can, right? And here's the thing. It wasn't like on every can in the supermarket. You couldn't even special order it.
Right.
Like, this wasn't even something you could even buy, right? So I'm like, why is everybody upset about it? It's not like they're forcing you to drink this, right? I get that some people have, and I'm not saying it's right, but I'm saying I get that they have, you know, these strong opinions against, you know, the trans community, right? My question would be here, right? And I guess this would be directed toward Nick, right? When you put, you know, everybody in this bundle, right, and you include trans in your community, right? Do you feel like they should kind of be doing their own thing, or it's like, no, we got your back. You're part of our community? Because I've heard a lot of, you know, differing opinions on that, where it's like, hey, they're making us look bad and this and that, and other people are no, it's part of our community. I mean, what's your opinion on that?
Yeah, it's the whole LGBT community is divided in itself, even as well too. The gays don't like the lesbians, and there's the issues with the trans community,
but everybody likes the gays.
Who doesn't love the gays?
The gays and the queens. Everybody loves the gays and the queens.
Yeah. So in our own community, there is this divisiveness, and it sucks, and it's unfortunate, and I know it's continued to evolve and change over the years, and has gotten, I feel, easier and more accepted. We used to have in Columbus, when I first worked in the gay bars, basically we had 25 gay bars here, and by gay I mean LGBT owned and operated, essentially, that target to the audience. There used to be 3 that were specifically lesbian bars. If I walked into the lesbian bar, I wouldn't get served as a male,
Wow.
and as a gay male.
Huh.
It took probably 5 years for that to finally kind of change, after conversations with the owners as well too, because my job relied on me getting business in those bars too. So I'm like, hello, we're the same community here. And the bars in general and the scene of that nightlife has changed as well too, where it's becoming more acceptable to go to a campus bar if you're in college. Like in college, I didn't feel accepted at any of the bars there. Now I see the campus bars making pride shirts and getting that out there and making it more of a community. So it's been awesome to see that change since 2010 when I started in that side of the industry. It does take time, unfortunately, and there's a lot of older bad apples out there as well too. There's some even younger that are just stuck up on themselves and think they're better than everybody else. So
I see. Yeah. I mean, so it's still kind of like divided, and it's kind of like the rest of the world where we're trying to, you know, say you're okay, you're not, I don't like you, but you're cool. Yeah. So it kind of parallels that as well. Going back to the podcast, right? And Scott or Nick, either one, right? You know, you want to make this a thing. You want to make this successful, right? I heard you talk about Patreon and things like that. What's going to set you apart, right? What is going to be the thing that, you know, draws that new audience in? Again, because it's such a saturated market. And I ask every podcaster this, right? You're proud of your product. You think it's good stuff, right? But what sets you apart? What's going to make people listen?
That's a great question. And it's honestly something that I used to really, really struggle with, because I'm like, okay, at first we were just a talk show. Everybody who wants to start a podcast, that's what they start with. They start with just a generic talk show. I think that what makes us unique is the topics that we talk about. They're very real topics. They're relatable, and we say a lot of the things that people think but don't say. You know, and I think that's kind of what sets us apart. Also, our listeners is what sets us apart, because they're so passionate about seeing us succeed and them contributing it, whether it's Jersey Man, Florida Man, Travels and Tribulation, Remy's Word of the Day. I mean, these little bits that they contribute to our show. these are listeners that have come up with ideas and said, hey, what do you think about this? Or, we have a phone number that they can call, and they call in and it evolves. And I don't hear of a lot of podcasts that have that. Mm-hmm. And we have such a really cool community. And I listen to a lot of podcasts about podcasts. I know that's like super nerdy and super boring if you're not in the podcast world, but
it's very meta. Yeah.
This is why Scott can't. This is why you can't make any more friends.
And this is why I don't get laid. Also, Nick. This is my wife's like, hey, do you want to have some adult time? I'm like, no, I'm podcasting tonight. So Kevin Schmidlin, Grow the Show. He said, you don't have to be the best show out there. You don't have to be, but you need to be someone's favorite. And if you could be someone's favorite, that's how you build. For example, the New York Knicks, not a very good basketball team, but they are people's favorites. Mm-hmm. And those people are very, very loyal to the New York Knicks. They're going to spend money on the merch. They're going to go to the games. And it doesn't matter if they're good or bad. They're still going to show up to every single game. It's the same way that it makes a lot of sense. We may not be the best podcast yet, but
we're number 3 in Orlando.
We are number 3 in Orlando. That is
nice.
What we did. We did come in 3rd place.
Nice.
But I've strived to be people's favorite, and with being people's favorite, you create loyalty, you create engagement. Mm-hmm. And that's really what I've always wanted. I've wanted engagement. And we Chris told me start Patreon. And I'm like, no one's going to pay us to do anything. And mm-hmm. we've got a good amount of Patreon members that will, I should have asked you permission. Alex kept this out. I'm streaming this interview to our Patreon members, and we've got we've got people watching right now. Mm-hmm. That's what I've always wanted. And that is what sets us apart and it's going to propel us.
Very cool. Yeah. And with that, with anybody trying to get their product out there, their name out there, right? A lot of work goes into social media, right? Like me personally, I hate social media. I only started an Instagram because I wanted people to listen to the podcast, right? I was on I guess it's called X now, Twitter, right? I'm like, who the hell uses this? Yeah. I had no idea how to use that thing. I'm like, only businesses really use this. Any average person that uses this is just to troll stuff or, to follow businesses. Anyone that uses it for personal reasons is psychotic. Like, I don't understand Twitter, X, whatever it's called now. But you've got all kinds of stuff you got to do. YouTube, TikTok, right? How do you manage that stuff? Is that something that, y'all are really into?
So yes and no. We've had the Facebook, we've had the page, the group, we've had Instagram, we've had a TikTok, we've had a Twitter. Now we have a Threads. We also have something blue. It's a very liberal. It's kind of like Truth Social, but the opposite of that. Blue Sky is what it's called. So we started doing all this. I was not very good at it. I'm still not very good at it because, when you start this, you just post your links. Nobody cares about your link. And really your followers, only 10% of the people see your links. Mm-hmm. So recently, we use a software. It's called Riverside to record on, Riverside.fm. They've just they've just come up with this technology. It's an AI technology where it will find highlights of your episode and create clips for you. And it's like super easy to edit. And then I upload to TikTok, I upload to Instagram, I upload to Facebook, and I'm already seeing tremendous engagement, tremendous results from that. So no, I'm not great at it, but I'm trying to get better. I'm old. I'm 43 years old. I don't know how to use this shit.
I was going to say
he kind of hit the jackpot almost by bringing me on, not to like make my head bigger or anything 100%. Like that. I came from a marketing background. I've been in marketing for almost 20 years now, I think. And I started my own business during a pandemic. I started a travel agency. So I started a travel agency August 2020 when nobody was traveling. We didn't know when we could travel or leave our house again, especially in California when everything was shut down for so much longer. And so I started a business, but I'm a marketing guy and I knew that people are going to come back. and they're going to be ready to travel and ready to spend money, because I know everybody else, all my friends were ready to get the hell out of the house. And since then, I did that part-time, and I left my full-time job in liquor sales, where I was making $100,000 a year last year. I left it 1 year ago and doing this full-time now, focusing on traveling. And now the podcasting has been a fun hobby for me. It's something that I wanted to do too, with the travel agency, but I just hadn't had the time, hadn't really had the experience. And now Scott's basically tied me to this one, so I can't leave. So.
Listen, it's a win-win for both of us, because now you have free reign to promote Sandpiper in addition to the commercials. So it's a win-win.
I was going to say, I thought I heard you say you had a marketing background, so that was interesting, right? Yeah. Promoting the podcast. Speaking of social media, Nick, y'all on, was it Grindr?
Yep. Yeah, we've talked about Grindr. Have we talked about Grindr much? We were going to talk about it, I think, on one episode, and we never got into it.
We got sidetracked. Yeah, we were going to talk about the gay online dating and
yeah. Oh, that's dating. Well, I didn't know if it was social media or what, but I thought
it's a little bit of in a sense, it's dating hookup.
Well, I just killed my own joke there.
I know.
Right. So yeah, Nick, you got your your full-time thing going on, and Scott, I mean, I'll just ask him, do you have any other are you doing things full-time, or because you're going to go all in on this? Yeah, you got to right now, right?
Yeah, I'm a restaurant manager at a major Orlando, Florida resort. I don't reveal where exactly it is. But my boss is a mouse. So yeah, I do that full time, and my schedule works out where Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, those are my free nights to either appear on other podcasts or do interviews, and then we record both of our episodes on Wednesday nights.
So to both of you, because I do this podcast, I do it for fun, right? At work, for me, I really don't want to tell people about my podcast, unless, they find out or they hear me talk about it and they're like, hey, can I check it out? I'm really reluctant to, because I am a different person at work than I am on here. Mm-hmm. Right. I mean, I think you gotta be, so I really don't like to promote that way, because I don't want somebody to be like, oh, well, I didn't know he was, he had that opinion, because we talk about some shit that's controversial sometimes, like y'all do, right?
Yeah.
So same question kind of for both of you, right? Do you promote this at work, right? Is that kind of awkward, or you're like, nah, check it out. I want you to check it out.
Baby, and when I'm at 7-Eleven, I will turn on my episode and just sit in the parking lot and blast it. No, I tell people. I tell people about it all the time. But what I do tell people is we play characters on the show. Yes, there are some real things, and there are some real stories that we tell. But there's a lot of things that are exaggerated. A lot. Right. We told a story one time where, I don't know how we got on the subject, but it was, yes, my wife and I have adult time and the dog stays in bed with us. And that turned into, I'm into bestiality, which is the furthest thing from the truth. But it's been kind of, it's a running gag, not a joke, because jokes are rooted in truth. It's a running gag. But I have to tell people, look, this is a very exaggerated show. We play characters on this show. And not everything that you hear is true.
So you take the dog to Costco.
Yeah.
He gets the peanut butter out all the time for the dog.
See, there we go. These are the jokes that I have to deal with. But to answer your question, I know I expanded in an extremely long way. Yeah, I promote it to anybody that will listen to me for more than 3 minutes.
Very nice.
And I think for me, I have been promoting it a lot because we've talked about it on the episode. I suffer from anxiety and depression and PTSD and everything else. I'm sure there's a lot of medications I'm on right now. So for me, it's been very therapeutic. I've been going through a huge therapy journey since February 2020. And about a year and a half ago, my mind kind of basically flipped and my life kind of turned around, and I've just gained such a positive attitude. And for me, the podcast has been very therapeutic, on top of being able to share my personal thoughts and feelings that I've been holding inside my entire life. And as a gay person, it's a lot on my shoulders. As I said, I feel like I have to come out every single time. So
this medium, right, it is kind of like a audio journal almost sometimes, right? I mean, I've shared some stuff before where it's like, oh, I didn't know that about you. I didn't know you went through that kind of thing. And people have come on here and have done the same. They've shared a story, and they've had family listen and be like, wow, I can't believe it, or I didn't know that. So it is a pretty cool tool sometimes that way to use, right?
Yeah. We're very quick to judge people, and I feel like for me it's helped reset my mind and say, look at a person that might be yelling. I think I brought up this analogy of a person yelling at a flight attendant on an airline. There's a lot of anxiety going on at the airports, and something might have happened to trigger them, or they might be a Karen. There's two different explanations for that. But I try to think about something that they might be going through a bad day. I've had my own bad trips as well too at the airport, so I get the frustration and anxiety where it builds up. And I've yelled at people at Chipotle because my food, I blatantly saw them mess up my order and just be like, oh well. And so I'm like, yeah.
Fabian, fun fact: we found out there is no gay sex on Chipotle Day.
Yeah, you can't have sex after Chipotle. You can still do blood jobs, but
Fabian, it's easier for us to market some, or like to promote some episodes other than others. When we when Nick shared his coming out story, that was a super easy episode for us to promote, because here in Orlando there are a lot of members of that community that live here, and there's some that we don't even know about that haven't had the they don't feel comfortable coming out yet. And we're hoping that in addition to entertaining people, maybe someone can hear that episode, someone that's related to all of us, and hear that episode and say, you know what, I'm ready to come out. I'm ready to come out. I'm ready to share my truth and my love. And so we want to entertain, but we also want to inspire and encourage.
Yeah. I mean, it can't all be ha-has, right? Sometimes you gotta really do some cool shit. Yeah.
And to expand on my answer before, that's what sets us apart, because we can be super funny, super silly, but then in an instant we can be extremely serious. Our Pulse episode was that was hard for me. I got emotional during that episode. It was hard for Nick, and it was also hard for Chris, and we can flip that switch. And I think that diversity, that depth that we have is really what sets us apart.
Very much. Yeah, they're very, very cool. Like, I really, I can get behind that, making people laugh, but, try to make them feel something human as well. Now, what have you got coming up in, on the horizon that people can look forward to if they tune into the No New Friends podcast? What's coming up? What do you have planned?
Oh man, we're hoping to have our very first on-air conception. Chris is a newlywed, and we're hoping that he can share that miracle of life with us.
Scott's always all about content, so anytime there's something that could be a big viral moment, he's all about making it happen.
Are you sure you want to use the word viral and conception?
Chris tore his Achilles 2 weeks before a cruise to Alaska. And the first thing I said is, I feel really bad for you. The second thing I said is, this is gold. This is going to be great. I can't wait. I love content, and I will turn anybody's pain into content. Now we've got some really cool interviews coming up. We both work with Steve, and Stevie sets us up with some great interviews. I know we're going to have our second go around with Eddie Deason, who was in the Polar Express and Grace, and we're going to talk more about Polar Express. So that's coming up closer to December. We've got some big unconfirmed interviews that we're working on. So, we like to sprinkle in those celebrity interviews.
I got to ask, because everybody, who's kind of in this little circle, has talked to Larry Hankin. Have you talked to Larry Hankin yet?
Yeah, we've had Larry Hankin on. We're about to kind of circle around and maybe get the second interview because he's got a second book coming up. I think that's like Larry Hankin is everybody's intro into these interviews. Like that's the first one that Stevie sets.
He's the best though, man. That guy has great stories. He's been doing this for 8 decades. Right?
Yeah, I know. Is that not crazy?
Yeah, and I've had him on 3 times because there's so much to dig into.
Yeah.
And the book was part of it too, but some of it too was just like digging into some of these characters.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember him from Home Improvement. he kind of tripped out on that because nobody ever remembers his appearance in Home Improvement.
I don't know if I remember.
Yeah, I don't remember him. I know him from Friends. Him from Friends, and then when you look at his work, you're like, "Holy crap, he's done this." Mm-hmm. We've had some really cool interviews, and I'm sure we've got a lot of crossovers. Bruce Valanche, who wrote the 1978 Star Wars Holiday Special, that atrocity of a movie. Carl Gottlieb, who was the screenwriter for Jaws. So one of my first jobs, Fabian, I drove the Jaws boats at Universal Studios, and I met my ex-wife at Jaws. We've got 2 kids together. My sister worked at Jaws.
They're not the same person, right?
What? No, they're not. Stop it. We don't talk.
It's Florida. It's Florida.
You never know.
I met my current wife. She worked at Earthquake, which was right next to Jaws. So Jaws holds like this special place in my heart. So interviewing Carl was this huge thrill. And then, of course, Jeremy Miller from Growing Pains, which I grew up on 80s sitcoms. And that interview really is what changed the course of our After Dark episodes, because Jeremy he was very transparent and shared a lot of his childhood trauma from being a child actor and his mental health. And it was one of our best interviews, and we're like, wait a second, we can do depth, we can do serious pretty well. And that's what kind of helped After Dark evolve.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, I wanted to see if you want to throw your all your social medias out there, right, where people can find you and things like that, where they can listen. So where can people find you?
So the best way is our website, nonewfriendspodcast.com. All of our social media links are there. We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. We're streaming all of our episodes on all podcast platforms. I mean, we're on the mom and pop podcast platforms, and then we're on iHeart, Spotify, Google, Apple, all the big ones. And then we stream our episodes. We stream segment 1 of our Wednesday episode on Twitch starting at 8:00 on Wednesdays, and then we stream all of After Dark on Twitch starting at 10 o'clock on Wednesdays, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Sorry.
You mentioned all the little platforms and stuff like that. One time I found out I was on this platform that was I don't know if it was India based or Nepal or something.
Yeah.
Ghana, right?
Yeah.
And I'm that's so cool.
So we're trending in what countries?
We are in the top. We're in the top 100 right now in Ireland, Thailand, and Canada, and then we're in the top 250 in the United States for comedy improv.
I was telling my friends when we do the shit show, I'm like, man, we got all of the Guptas and Patels listening to us. It shot up thousands. I was like, what the hell? Why are we getting thousands of extra plays, and why is it just in this region here? I'm like, what? Whatever. I'll learn some Hindi. I don't care. We'll switch it up.
I probably shouldn't talk about how I yelled at the Patel family I was in a queue line at Disney, and they cut the line, and I started yelling at them, and then I told the story about the Patel family, so I should probably cut that out. Alex cut that out. Alex is our producer. Anytime we say something we need to cut out, Alex cut it out.
Oh,
but
nice.
It never gets cut, so.
No.
So he forgets he's not doing his goddamn job.
No.
Exactly.
Well, you don't need that friend, right? That new friend, right? But we got your social medias. We learned a little bit about you all, right? Anything else you want to throw out there to the podcast world before we close out?
Nick, why don't you give your plug for Sandpiper? That's the big one.
Yeah, let's. So, like I said, I own a travel agency. It's called sandpipervacations.com. We're on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. I don't understand how half those things work either. But yeah, so we focus on booking vacations to Disney, Universal, cruises, all-inclusive resorts. Doesn't cost anything to use our services. So give us a call and we'll get you out of here.
Very nice. All right. Well, Scott, Nick, I really enjoyed our time, man. I thought it was, hey, no new friends, but I kind of feel like I got some new friends here, right?
Yeah, man. So, absolutely. You could be a new friend.
Yeah, for sure.
We love new friends.
Well, contrary to the name, right? So
Exactly.
I really want to, thank you for being on. I appreciate it. Best of luck in everything you do. But hopefully, hey, sometime down the line, we'll talk again, right? It's always fun to shoot shit.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We'd love to come back on.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. And for everybody listening at home, I appreciate it. Thank you. Fuck you and good night. Subscribe to the Ignorance is Strength podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. Like, follow, and share on Facebook and Instagram at Ignorance is Strength Podcast and on Twitter at The Ignorance Pod.